In the deep silence of space, far beyond the busy core worlds, a small human listening post floated near a cold asteroid belt. It was old and forgotten by most, run by only a few engineers and one board operator named Leo. For weeks, nothing unusual had happened. Just the usual space dust, empty signals, and quiet stars. But then one night something changed. A strange signal broke through the static, a weak, broken cry that cut through the silence like a knife. At first, Leo thought it was interference. The sound was full of static and noise, but then he heard a voice, a child's voice. It was, shaking, full of fear and pain. "Please, help us, they're coming." The message skipped, repeated, then continued. "They're burning everything. We can't breathe." Leo froze. He turned up the volume and leaned closer. His heart was pounding. He recorded the signal, checked the source. It came from Rivenfall, a small human colony deep in Alliance territory. That was strange. Rivenfall wasn't in danger. It was safe, peaceful. Families lived there. Scientists, children, teachers. It was under full Alliance protection. He called his commander immediately. More officers arrived. The signal was confirmed. It was real. But there was something even more disturbing. The timestamp showed the message had been sent 3 weeks ago. That meant no one had answered. Not the Alliance. Not any patrol ships. No one had helped. The humans at the station didn't speak for a long moment. Everyone stared at the screen as the message replayed again and again. "Please, help us. They're here. It burns." The silence that followed was heavy. Back on Earth, news of the signal spread fast. The room where the High Command gathered was quiet and dark. A large screen played the recording for the leaders of Earth's Defense Force. No one interrupted. No one blinked. The sound of the child's cry echoed through the hall. After the message ended, no one said a word for several minutes. Finally, Admiral Kira stood up. Her voice was cold and steady. "How many people lived on Rivenfall?" she asked. "Over 10,000, someone whispered. "Mostly civilians." "And how many survivors?" she asked again. No one answered. The Admiral turned away from the screen and looked at the faces of her team. The Alliance promised to protect them. They failed. Now, we answer. No speech, no public anger, no calls for war. The humans simply began to move. In the following days, Earth's military began pulling ships from training missions. Advanced fleets disappeared from known space routes. Supply lines shifted. Communication blacked out in some sectors. The Alliance noticed, but Earth gave no explanation. One ambassador from the Alliance tried to calm the humans with careful words. "We are looking into the matter," he said. "We advise patience." But he didn't understand. Earth wasn't waiting for answers. Earth had already decided. They had heard a child's last scream, and that was enough. Some on the Alliance Council believed humans would cool down, that they would settle for a political solution. After all, humans were peaceful, friendly, builders of cities, creators of music and art, but they had forgotten something important. Something the old empires had once learned the hard way. Humans are omnivores. They can plant gardens or hunt. And now they were hunting. From the shadows, old human warships began to wake. Fleets that hadn't moved in years were powered up, refitted, and armed. In orbit around Mars, a black ship known only as the Silence activated for the first time in decades. Its crew climbed aboard without a single word spoken. The mood across Earth changed, not with chaos, but with something far more dangerous. Focus. News stations didn't talk about revenge. Politicians didn't call for blood. Instead, people lit candles in windows, shared the child's recording on every network. Soldiers packed their bags without orders. Engineers worked through the night without sleep. Across the stars, aliens who had lived beside humans for years felt something shift, something deep, something old. One alien ambassador said it best. "The humans aren't screaming, they aren't shouting, they are remembering." Back on the listening post, Leo sat alone in the dark, the signal still playing softly in his ear. HFY, Didn't cry. Not anymore. He just whispered, "We're coming." And this time, the stars would burn for them. The silence after the distress call was heavier than any sound. Earth's forces moved quickly, but no one knew exactly what they would find at Rivenfall, the small human colony that sent the desperate cry for help. When the first human ships arrived, they found only ashes and silence. Rivenfall was gone. The buildings were blackened ruins. Streets once full of life were now empty and still. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of burning metal. No children's laughter, no voices, only signs of a terrible fight. Soldiers walked carefully through the ruins. They found scorched bodies, humans and aliens alike. But the most chilling discovery was the symbol carved deeply into the walls and ground, a dark, claw-like mark known across the galaxy as the sign of the Vokari raiders. The Vokari were feared everywhere, a ruthless, violent alien race banned by the Alliance for their cruelty. No one wanted to see them again. But here, on Rivenfall, their mark was clear. "How did they get past the Alliance patrols?" Commander Jara asked, her voice tight with anger. "No idea," replied one officer. "Our satellites never saw them. No ships reported through. It was impossible. The Alliance's borders were strong. The colonies were protected. No enemy should have been able to reach Rivenfall." That made the pain worse. Some began to whisper about betrayal. Had someone let the Vokari in? Was there a spy inside the Alliance? Meanwhile, survivors were almost nowhere to be found. A few escape. Pods floated in space, empty or damaged. Only one was found with a survivor, a small child badly burned and scared. The girl, barely able to speak, told a simple story through trembling lips. "They came in the night. They laughed when we screamed. They took everything and left us to die." Her words cut deeper than any weapon. Back on Earth, the news spread quickly. People watched the footage of the ruined colony, the black claw marks and the child's tear-streaked face. How could this happen? Many asked. The Alliance called for calm, saying they would investigate. But on Earth, patience was gone. The leaders saw only one answer. They had failed their people, and failure was not an option. In secret, Earth's commanders met and planned. No more waiting. No more silence. The humans would make the galaxy remember what happened to Rivenfall. Because now, they were awake, and the fury of humanity was just beginning to grow. The galaxy watched quietly as Earth did not answer the calls for peace or justice. No speeches, no threats, no angry messages. Instead, something darker grew in the shadows. Human fleets, some old and forgotten, suddenly disappeared from known space. Training exercises stopped. Supply routes changed. Communication lines went dark in some places. The Alliance leaders grew nervous. They sent diplomats to Earth asking for answers. They reminded humans of treaties and promises. But Earth said nothing. The humans were silent, but they were not still. Inside Earth's war rooms, commanders prepared quietly and carefully. Every ship was checked, every weapon tested. Plans were made for strikes that no one outside the military would know about. The world's people felt it too. A tension in the air, a quiet waiting for something big. In the streets, families whispered about Rivenfall. They shared the child's cry again and again. They lit candles to remember those lost. But no one cried openly, because they knew this was not just a moment of sadness. It was a moment of change. The humans did not shout because they were angry. They were focused. Their fury was like a calm storm, ready to explode. One Alliance ambassador said quietly, "We thought they would beg for peace, but they are preparing for war." The old empires remembered the stories. Humans were omnivores. They could eat plants, or they could hunt animals. They were balanced, but dangerous. Now the galaxy was about to see what happens when humans decide to hunt. In the cold darkness of space, Earth's greatest ship, known as the Silence, powered up after decades of rest. Its crew boarded silently. Knowing the moment had come, no one could hear them coming. But when the attack started, the galaxy would never forget the fury that followed. In the vast emptiness near Rivenfall, A small escape pod drifted silently. Inside, curled up and trembling, was a child, the only known survivor of the terrible attack. Her clothes were torn, her skin burned, and her eyes were wide with fear. She could barely speak. They laughed. When we screamed, she whispered over and over. The humans who found her carried her carefully to the rescue ship. She was weak but alive. Her story was simple and haunting. The Vokari raiders came with fire and weapons. They did not care about anyone's life. They burned homes, destroyed everything, and left death in their path. The child's cries were recorded and sent back to Earth. When the leaders heard her voice again, something changed. That night, on the other side of the galaxy, the Vokari homeworld suddenly lost contact with many of its outposts. Lights went dark. Stations went silent. Earth had finally struck back. The human attack was fast and silent. No warnings, no messages. Just destruction. The Vokari ships were found burned and broken in space. The humans did not stop at the homeworld's borders. They wanted the Vokari to know the pain they had caused. A message was left on the hull of a captured Vokari dreadnought. Written in bold human script, "You answered a child's cry with fire, we answer with fury." The galaxy watched in fear. The Alliance tried to call for peace, but Earth did not listen, because this was no longer a war for territory. This was a war for justice, and humanity's fury was only just waking. The strikes were swift and silent. Earth's warships moved like shadows through Vokari space, attacking without warning or mercy. Their weapons cut through enemy fleets and stations, leaving no survivors, no calls for help. The Vokari were shocked. They had never seen humans fight like this. No loud battle cries, no flashy attacks, just deadly precision. Every target was destroyed. Every message Earth left was clear. You answered a child's cry with fire, we answer with fury. The Alliance tried to stop the war. They sent envoys, demanded ceasefires, and reminded Earth of galactic laws, but Earth ignored them. The humans were no longer asking for peace. They were delivering justice. In the dark corners of the galaxy, whispers spread. Some Alliance members secretly helped the Vokari. They feared Earth's growing power and did not want the humans to control the galaxy. But Earth's spies already knew about the traitors. The betrayal would not go unanswered. A secret plan, called Operation Ashvale, was born. It was a final strike against the Vokari and the traitors who helped them. When Operation Ashvale began, the galaxy saw the true strength of humanity. They realized one terrible truth. You don't survive humanity's fury. You only regret awakening it. Whispers in the halls of the Alliance grew louder. Some of its leaders were afraid of what Earth had become. They watched as human fleets struck deeper into Vokari space, destroying bases and supply lines without mercy. But worse than the attacks were the secrets. Some Alliance members had secretly helped the Vokari raiders. They feared Earth's rising power and wanted to stop humanity before it grew too strong. But the humans had spies everywhere. Earth's intelligence knew about the betrayal. There was no forgiveness. Earth's leaders gave orders for Operation Ashvale, a final, crushing strike not only on the Vokari, but also on the traitors within the Alliance. Ships moved in silence, striking at the heart of the conspiracy. Worlds that once supported the Vokari found their defenses destroyed. No one was safe. The galaxy began to understand a frightening truth. Humanity did not seek war, but if forced, they would burn everything to ash and leave nothing standing. The humans had awakened an ancient fury, a rage born from loss and betrayal, and now it was unstoppable. The Alliance feared what would come next, but it was too late to stop the storm. Humanity was no longer a quiet voice in the galaxy. It was a roaring force that demanded respect or destruction. The war was over, but the galaxy would never forget what had happened. The Vokari raiders were broken. Their homeworld lay in ruins, their fleets shattered. The traitors in the Alliance were exposed and punished. But more than that, a message echoed across every star system, clear and unyielding. A message from humanity. It was simple. It was warning. We heard a child's cry. We answered with fire. We will protect our own, no matter the cost. From the ashes of destruction, humanity stood taller than ever. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors, protectors of their people. The galaxy had learned something important. Never underestimate the fury of those who fight to defend their own, and never mistake silence for weakness, because sometimes the quietest voice carries the loudest roar. The distress call that once awakened humanity's fury had changed everything. Now, every star knew. Humanity's fury was a force the galaxy could never forget. The war had left scars on the galaxy, scars no one could ignore. Systems once peaceful were now forever changed. Alliances had shattered, and new fears rose from the ashes. But on Earth, something stronger had grown. Humanity was no longer just a distant star in the galaxy. They had become a force born not from conquest, but from fierce protection. Commander Leo, the operator who first heard the distress call, stood quietly on the bridge of a powerful new ship. The stars stretched before him, vast, endless, and filled with unknown dangers. He remembered the child's voice, that trembling cry that had awakened humanity's fury. He felt a deep pride mixed with sorrow. "We answered," he whispered, "and we will never forget." Around the galaxy, the story of Rivenfall was told again and again, not as a tale of defeat, but as a warning that when humans rise to protect their own, no enemy is too strong, no threat too great. The Alliance, once proud and powerful, learned that peace was not given by words alone. It was defended by those willing to stand and fight. In the years after the war, humans did not forget their fury, but they also learned to balance it, to build and protect, to create and defend. New colonies rose from the ruins. Old enemies slowly rebuilt trust. But one truth remained clear as the brightest star in the sky. The distress call that had once echoed in the silence was more than a cry for help. It was a promise. Promise that humanity would fight, and fight hard, for those they loved. And the galaxy would never forget the sound of their fury, because it was a fury born not from hate, but from hope, from survival, from the unbreakable spirit of humanity. The galaxy was quiet again, but it was not the same quiet as before. It was a quiet born from hard lessons, from battles fought and lives lost. On Earth, people looked up at the stars with new eyes, eyes full of hope, but also of watchful caution. The sea, war had changed everything. The child's cry from Rivenfall was no longer just a distant echo. It was a call that had awakened the true heart of humanity. From that moment on, humans had known their strength, not just in power or weapons, but in their will to protect what they loved, and that strength would guide them into the future. New alliances were formed, not based on fear or force, but on respect. The alliance itself began to change. It learned that true peace comes not from control, but from understanding. The Vokari raiders, broken and defeated, faded into history, a warning to all who might threaten peace again. Commander Leo, now older and wiser, stood once more on the bow bridge of a great human ship. The stars stretched endlessly before him. He thought of the past, of the cries, the fires, the battles, and he thought of the future, a future where humanity's fury was no longer a weapon of destruction, but a shield of protection, where their story would inspire others to stand strong, to fight for justice, and to never forget the cost of peace. The distress call that had once shattered the silence was now a beacon, a promise that humanity would always rise, always protect, always endure. Because in the darkest moments when all seems lost, that is, when the human spirit shines the brightest, and as the stars glowed softly around him, Leo smiled. The end was only the beginning. A new dawn had arrived,